Hello, everyone, and welcome. Welcome to your Maximum Bliss Accelerator Moment. Every Sunday morning, I'm going to be doing a talk like this for the next few weeks at least. It's a short MBA moment talk. MBA for me stands for Maximum Bliss Accelerator. Every talk is going to be at 11 a.m. Eastern time, and they're going to be short. And these talks are particularly for those of you who are interested in solopreneurship, those of you who want to change your lifestyle to an online business model that gives you more flexibility to live your life and to work and travel wherever you want to. I'm Daniela Saioni, and last year in April 2020, I completely changed my lifestyle from one of working 70 hours a week on film sets, true story, to one of working 12 hours a week at home online. Truthfully, I'd be traveling, but we were in lockdown, so I did it all from home online. And guess which one paid me more? There is a whole world of opportunity out there that I wish I knew about when I was in my 20s. I'm in my 50s now. So I keep wanting to spread the gospel about this because I think we should all be aware of the possibilities. A few months after I made the changes in my own life, I started a group called Coffee Break MBA. It's a coaching community, and I'm currently working with 50, mostly artists all over the world, setting up online businesses and changing their own lifestyles. And it's been one of my joys. That group is Coffee Break MBA. In that group, of course, I get deep and individual with all their projects and new businesses. But here I thought, let's have a free venue for anyone who is interested to start thinking about this stuff in a no stress kind of way. So today I want to talk about retraining your brain, because that was the first step for me, and it wasn't instantaneous by any means at all. Retraining your brain is probably the first step for everybody in this process of becoming a solopreneur, going from hourly pay, even gig hourly pay, because I was a gig worker, to online businesses where there's much more flexibility. The first thing we have to do is believe it is possible. And there's a whole bunch of things that factor into that. So I thought this has to be the first talk I do today. So for me, I found myself in trouble in April 2020 when lockdown hit, because I could not go back to set to work. And it was before the benefits were announced for Canadians. I'm in Toronto, Canada. So I had to shift my mindset pretty quickly, but luckily it had already happened for me. It started to happen actually more than 10 years ago when I read a book called The 4-Hour Workweek. The 4-Hour Workweek, if you have not read it yet, is by Tim Ferriss. And it was written in 2007. I found myself sick, very sick in 2009. I had to take 6 months off work. And that's when I read the book. And when you have to take 6 months off work due to illness, you really start to reevaluate things. And I'm so glad that that book found me at that time, because, while the concepts in it didn't hit me till 2020, when I really needed them, it started to plant the seeds in my brain about shifting my mindset. So if you haven't read it, that book is all about living like the new rich. And he's not talking about financial, although the financial comes with it, but he's talking about the currency of the new rich being time and freedom to travel. Does that sound familiar? Because I see the whole world shifting now towards that. I see people across all labor movements putting their tools down and saying, enough of this blatant abuse of our time. And it does feel, it does feel unfair for many of us, even with great jobs. Listen, I had a great job with a high hourly pay in the film business, but it was making me sick, like literally making me physically ill, as much as I loved my job. Some jobs are not as grueling, but they still tie you to a desk. They still tie you to somewhere where maybe you want to be somewhere else, or you want to be pursuing a life, like pursuing life with a family or a partner, or creating. Most of the artists I work with, the people I work with in my Coffee Break group are artists. And as artists, we're always looking for more time to create, because even if we're just working a 9-to-5 job and not like the grueling 70-hour schedule that film workers and medical workers and other workers have, it all cuts into our creativity time, right? So that was a great motivating factor for me personally. But yeah, I tend to work with artists because I keep my rates are super affordable now for that program because of that, because I want to help the artists first, because we need it. Okay. So the 4-hour work week sort of started to shift my mindset, because I could see that it was possible. What he did was, Tim Ferriss had a 9-to-5 desk job, which I think was longer than 9-to-5. Sometimes he worked on Wall Street in a cubicle, and he took a year off. He took a year off to travel the world and start an online business. He didn't even tell anyone he was leaving. And he said, people didn't notice. People didn't notice because he'd get his work done online. So he doesn't recommend doing that. He talks about making deals. And this was, remember, back in 2007. We're all doing this now, or a bunch of people are doing this now as they renegotiate lifestyles of, through the pandemic and beyond. People are renegotiating if they're going to work at home and be in the office, or a combination of both. And now, because of internet technology and Zooms and all kinds of other advancements, even since 2007, it is possible to incorporate this kind of thing even into your regular job. But I thought my online businesses were going to be my side hustle. They ended up being my whole life. They ended up being my whole way of making income, which means that next year, I hope, pandemic permitting, that I can now be a digital nomad, that I can work from any country in the world that I want to. I got my eyes on Dublin, Amsterdam, Reykjavik, and New York. Those are my favorite places to travel. So I will be posting, obviously, if I make it to all those places, or even one of those places, I'll be posting my talks here and in Coffee Break MBA and on YouTube from there, from those places. Okay, so in terms of today's topic, Retraining Your Brain, that book was seminal for me because he showed us it was possible. He did it. He had his best financial year ever, eventually quit his desk job. He, in the meantime, traveled to Argentina and China and Europe, and he did all these crazy things that he had always dreamt of doing. And he was a young man. I'm much older than Tim doing that as a young man. So, but just the guts to do that, and the way that it impacts, it's so crazy to me that the world has so shifted now where that is exactly what is possible for a majority of us. Anyway, seminal book. If you haven't read it, definitely read it or reread it, because some of you might have read it 10 years ago. So what stands between us and that lifestyle? It's crazy when you think about it. It's really not that much, but the biggest thing that seems to stand in our way, and I'm speaking for me as someone who grew up an Italian Canadian immigrant, right? My parents immigrated. As someone who grew up, and I find that this is very common across all cultures, that if you have immigrant parents, they really drill into you the work ethic. And the work ethic being, you have to work hard for your money, right? That's not untrue, but it's not the only truth. But they drill into you that you have to get a good paying job with a high hourly rate, or get as many jobs as you can. Listen, I was working hourly jobs since the age of 14. From age 14 to 21, I had always had 3 jobs. So I was working 40-hour weeks and going to high school and going to university because I had to pay for my own university. I was killing myself with work. And I'm sure many of you can relate because I believed that was the only way for me to work myself up to the next level of wealth, because I was poor working class. We were poor working class, right? So I had to work my way out of it, right? I'm sure I'm not the only one that went through that and really believed that money doesn't grow on trees and all kinds of other things that get drilled into our heads by our parents, by society. I wish I had thought to retrain my brain much younger, but that's okay. I was slowly doing it, since I read Tim's book, since I started to notice things around me, since I remembered what I had gone through as a teenager, and I went from that to film work, which was 70 hours a week. So I went down to one job that was almost double an average person's work week. And I did that for 30 years before I stopped. Okay. So I'm sure some of you have even crazier stories than that, crazier work patterns and work habits, because it was instilled in you. So it's really in our brains, right? Some other things that get in our brains is money is the root of all evil. I had some of that too, because I grew up Catholic, and that's sort of a very Catholic thing, right? Money is the root of all evil. It's easier for a rich man to pass through the eye of a needle than a rich man to get to heaven, that kind of stuff. I'm not religious anymore, but I was very Catholic when I was a kid. So these things run deep. And we have to counteract them. And we have to believe that other things are possible. First of all, money is neither good nor evil. It's just money. It's just energy exchange between people for, to validate goods and services that they need. It is not evil or it is not good. It is what you do with it can be, but money itself is not the root of all evil, right? There are benevolent billionaires, and there's others who go to space with all their money. But you can choose to do with your money what you want. But money is just energy. It really, once you start to understand, that one took me a while. That one took me years, but I had to be around people that also believe that, and also help me get to that conclusion that money is not evil, it's energy. And also that you don't have to work hard to get more money. In fact, the biggest lesson I learned in the pandemic was work less to get more money. But not only the money, I became rich with time. I really got to live out what Tim's, even though we were locked down in our apartments, I wrote more. I'm a screenwriter, and I wrote more in that year than I have ever written in my entire career. And by the way, I got 9 awards for it last year. This is the byproduct of living like the new rich and having more time. My life completely changed, and it wasn't hard. And so on my YouTube channel, I have many, many talks about exactly how I did it and all that. But this is general because all of you are going to find your bliss in many different ways. I'm telling you that there's a lot of opportunities online. There's many, many ways to skin a cat. Sorry for that very violent metaphor, but there's many, many ways you can make money online. There's not just one. With all the people that I'm working with right now, they all have different ideas. It's based on your passion and what you want to do, the people you want to help, and how you want to help them with the gift you already have. That's what it's about. So it's not a one size fits all. Everyone's going to come at it differently, but there's so much opportunity, and it doesn't involve physical labor. It doesn't involve you leaving the house unless you want to. And it doesn't even involve a lot of capital, because if you were to start a business before online times, you would have to rent a store, or, there's a lot of expenses that used to come with starting a business that are just gone now. There's not the risk factor about, that many people had to endure with physical shops, et cetera. By the way, another thing I had to personally get over was the idea that salespeople are bad, that sales themselves, they must be connivers. They must be conniving, because I have daddy issues and my dad was a salesman. So I had to get over the idea that sales itself is a bad thing, because you're going to ultimately, even if you're not doing like a shop or like a course business where you have to sell your courses, it's sales are going to be involved on any level, even if you're online, even if your endeavors is that you become a YouTuber and you do travel leisure videos. By the way, you can monetize those. You can earn a living from those, as a bunch of people in the world do. But you're still selling your channel. And so you have to also retrain your brain to understand that sales is not, and it doesn't have to be anything, underhanded. Or, you don't have to lie ever. I mean, in fact, you will go much farther in the world of online sales or online endeavors of any kind if you are just your true, authentic self. So that's the opposite of what I learned from my dad, who was a door-to-door salesman, who literally told me he lied to people in order to get their business. Yeah, I've never had to lie a moment in my life to achieve what I've achieved. And I think I've had, I think last year I made more money than my dad ever had. Sorry, Daddy, he's dead. Don't speak ill of the dead. But that's just the truth. And it was just, I think, a way that in the past, salespeople were trained, you know. I think that it's that whole Glengarry Glen Ross thing. Not like that anymore. Thank goodness. It's online world is like, be your true self and your people will find you. So retrain your brain about money, retrain your brain about sales. So how do you do that? I read a book, the really famous book that you've probably read if you're interested in business of any kind, which was written in the 1930s by Napoleon Hill, who was like a tycoon, like an old white man tycoon, called Think and Grow Rich. So Think and Grow Rich, he goes into all the different things that multimillionaires in the 30s shared, you know, all the different qualities and all the different habits. On my YouTube channel, which is just Daniela Saioni, if you're not already on my YouTube channel watching this, I actually have a review of his book, so you can see my summary of all the things he says. But what surprised me was one of the things he said was they all employed mantras. So mantras are associated with like woo-woo women, right? Woo-woo women who, like, we believe, you know, we run through the woods at night and worship the moon and all of that, right? Mantras are something that he claimed all successful businessmen in the 30s used. So mantras are things that you repeat yourself. It's basically the literal act of retraining your brain through words. So that might be, I am a magnet for abundance. I am a magnet for abundance. That's a great one. It's funny, there was a Catholic nun named Florence Scovel-Shinn who wrote a book around the same time called The Game of Life and How to Play It. And in that book, she talks about mantras as a way to attract abundance. And one of my favorites from her book was, I give perfect service for perfect pay, and it comes to me in a perfect way. Love that one. I've used that one. I used that one at the beginning of the pandemic. And guess what? I gave perfect service for perfect pay and it came to me in a perfect way. It's so funny because I had a number in my mind. I was like, what's the minimum I can live comfortably on in Toronto during this pandemic? And that number at the time was 10,000 a month. And guess how much money I made every single month? Our brains are powerful things and we can train them. We can ask them, we can make thoughts become things. Thoughts can become reality, but you have to start. And I never ever did mantras. It sounded so woo-woo to me, but the more I read about, successful people and they employed mantras. So I would recommend using that as a tool to retrain your brain. There's many other ways, but I mean, we have to start knocking down these thoughts that have been drilled into us about money is evil, salespeople are bad, you have to work really, really hard for your money. It's amazing that, yes, there is some work involved, no doubt. I'm not saying you don't have to work at all, but the difference between having to report somewhere where you don't necessarily feel like being that day. And I suffer from chronic pain. So, some days when I'm sick, I did not want to be standing outside in -20 for 10 hours. Sorry. I just, that didn't mean I didn't love my job. It meant I was hurting. I was physically hurting. By the way, since I've been offset, most of my chronic pain has gone away. So our bodies are not necessarily designed to work 10 hours to 16 hours a day. They're just not. So, and it's okay to stand together and say, we can't do this anymore, which is what we tried to do at IATSE, but we ratified that contract. That's another story. Only my film workers will know what I mean by that. Anyway, so for this week, until next week, if you're following along with my talks, the first thing I want you to do, if you have not read it, is please read Tim Ferriss's book, The 4-Hour Workweek. It's also available on audiobook. But if you get the printed version, he's got all kinds of resources like literal links and stuff. So either one, but highly recommend that you read it or reread it, because the world has shifted now to his book is now the world, right? From a book he wrote in 2007 is now the world. And then I want you to start identifying those thoughts that come in your brain about money. Anytime, and you unless you're looking for them, you won't hear them. So anytime you catch yourself saying, I can't afford that, because these are thoughts, things that keep us poor and down. Oh, I have to take that job because I need the money. Money is the root of all evil. Any of the things I talked about. Money doesn't grow on trees was a big one. Money doesn't grow on trees. You'll be surprised at the things that start happening to you once you start retraining your brain about money. Anyway, anytime you catch yourself in a negative thought this week, I want you to catch it and counteract it with a mantra. I am a magnet for abundance. Money doesn't grow on trees, but I'm a magnet for abundance. Some of you will think I'm crazy, but I thought that stuff was crazy before I started incorporating these things into my life. Catch yourself, retrain your brain. And I don't know what topic I'm going to do next week. I'll figure it out, but I will see you next Sunday at 11 a.m. That is step one. It hopefully won't take you as long as it took me, but I had a lot of deep issues with money and sales personally because of the way I grew up. You may be like me, but start fighting it now every day and you'll see how things change. See you next week. This has been your Maximum Bliss Accelerator Moment. And if you are watching me on YouTube, please like and subscribe to my YouTube channel. It helps me do more and more of these videos. My channel is about entrepreneurship, comedy writing, and filmmaking, all the things that I geek out about. Have a great Sunday.